Welcome, everyone, to our third online planning board meeting. Let me just take a look at the participants and make sure. So, Bill Spalding, that's me. Hello. Bill Diamore, he's over there. I can see you. Hi, Bill. Matthew Lowry. Hello, Matt. So we do have a quorum, although I've been reading up on Governor Baker's different COVID-19 adjustments to the open meeting laws, and I understood them correctly. We don't need to have a quorum. But that, I have to read that again. I read it quickly about an hour ago. Brian McGrail, I see Attorney McGrail. Let's see, Dana Lopez, Joanne Schooler. Is that how you pronounce your last name, Joanne Schooler?
Yep, that's right, just like school.
All right, excellent. Joe Tavano, Paul Revis. Paul, can you test your microphone just to make sure it all works?
It's working, right?
Yes, it is. And the same as last meeting, I do not have host control, so I hope everybody behaves. Let's see, Ryan Pfeiffer. You can see that name too. And Michael McCarthy, Attorney McCarthy, I see you. Can you test your microphone, make sure you're all set too?
Sure. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you good. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Just want to make sure it's all working. Bill and Matt, your microphone's working?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So those of you who, there's not many out there, those of you who have not been in a Zoom meeting in the last bunch of weeks, at the bottom of your screen, there should be a little chat with a bubble that says chat below it. If you click on that, you'll see chat will show up, Zoom group chat. I'll be watching that. If you do have a question, you can direct it to me, or you can direct it to everyone. But if it's a question that's going on about the meeting and all that, please direct it to me. And the way we run the meetings, and some of you know, we like to hear from the projects, and the board asks questions. We get a lot of answers and different discussions going on, the town planner, and then we like to open it up to the public for any comments. And when you do have a comment from the public, please state your name and your address, and that will help. This meeting is being recorded, so that way you can go back and look at it to see past meetings. And I'll show where that is on our website, on the town website too. There is an option to raise your hand. So if you do open up the participants window, so you can see down the bottom right near chat, there's a participants, it has a couple of people there, and I think it says 13 people are attending. If you open that up.
What you might suggest is people take their cursor and bump it against the bottom border of their picture.
Okay.
Picture frame, and then that toolbar will show up.
Right. So if you have.
It doesn't show up until you move your cursor down there.
Right. That's a very good point. Thank you, Paul. If you have your Zoom meeting maximized to your window, your menu might be hidden, and whether it's at the bottom or at the top, like Paul mentioned, if you hover down near the bottom with your cursor, your mouse, or your stylus, it will pop up and you'll see maybe 5 options: invite, participants, share, chat, and that's where those would live. If you click on participants, another window will come up, and under participants, you'll have an option to raise your hand. It might be in the middle in a little box. If you click on raise your hand, a little hand will go up. Mine happens to be blue. I think they're blue. And that's the virtual way for me to see that you have a question. And that's the way I'd like you to ask a question. If you do, I'll be scrolling up and down on that. If something happens and you have a very important interruption, please feel free to unmute and very cordially interrupt. That's totally fine. We don't want to miss an important point. Otherwise, if you don't have a speaking part, please keep your microphone on mute the whole time until you do have a speaking part. That would be great. It's up to you about your video. That's totally your option. Does anybody have any questions before we officially start the meeting? I don't see any hands. And we are good. I see we have another person in the meeting. We have Sarah and Sherry Dalton. Welcome, Sherry. Maybe she's trying to find out why the claim host doesn't work. Again, I think it might be something I'm doing where I'm starting the meeting from, but I'm not sure. So with that, it is 7:07. Let's bring tonight's meeting to order. Welcome to the May 12th Wakefield Planning Board meeting. If you didn't receive the agenda, well, you're all here, you clicked on the link. I will share that now. And then I'll show you on the website where we have, let's see, tonight's, a lot of stuff tonight. So, Matt, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen? Nice, good. Town of Wakefield Planning Board. And you can see here's the governor's orders pertaining to open meeting laws. May 12, 2020, minutes of the meeting. We have public hearings for Lovis Ave, public hearing, which will be continued, but we can hear from Attorney McGrail. Zoning map change for 3 parcels of land west side of North Ave. That's the 3rd meeting on this, which we're hoping will be the last. And if there are any questions, we'll get to that for the public hearing, but we would like to close that this evening. Public hearing for zoning map change 102 New Salem Street, same thing. I think that might be the 4th night for the Salem Street one. Other business, we have 2 A&R plans to review, 84 Preston Street. And if you're not familiar with an A&R plan, it's approval not required. We can endorse that plan after we review. And that will be some good discussions for Blue Jay, Preston, and Lancaster Road. And then we're going to look at definitive plan endorsement for Wildwood Street. That will be continued, but we'll open it up to see if Attorney McGrail has any comments or questions or things that the board can help with. And then there's topics not anticipated by the chair, and we'll review with the town planner and the rest of the board about some other. We have town meeting coming up and a few other things to discuss. At the very bottom, this is a very nice thing we added last year. It explains what's going on with a lot of the projects, meaning when was it last reviewed, when is the public hearing open, and the decision has to be made by a certain time. So there's a September 30th on the deadline for Lovis Ave. So back up to the top, let's see. Before we get into the agenda, I do want to note that the website, so let me stop the share and start a new share for our town website. It's way better than it was when I started the planning board. There's a lot of information on here now. The meeting videos are up here in the top left. Okay, so Sherry was able to claim the host and make me the host. That's wonderful. And I'll test that out. Thank you, Sherry. Awesome. And you can see there's information about the planning board, and on the right side agendas. There's also a link here to the town planners page. If you're not sure about what the town planner does, amazing amount of work, and you can see all the different plans and resources that are on the left side. That's on our town's webpage. Back to tonight's agenda. Okay. First item, minutes of the previous meeting. Matt and Bill, we haven't resolved our clerk as far as keeping written notes. Right now we have recorded notes, and we have talked to town council, to Mr. Mullen, whether that's required or not. We do have a meeting. I have a meeting with town administrator and Mr. Mullen and Paul Revis tomorrow at 11, I believe. I'll have to check my calendar to review that among some other things too. So we can discuss that at the end of tonight's meeting. But as far as the minutes of the previous meetings, I'd like to table those. Matt or Bill, can you make a motion?
I'll make a motion to table the previous minutes of March 10th, 2020, March 24th, 2020, April 14th, 2020, April 28th, 2020.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we, by open meeting law, we are supposed to post our notes within 30 days unless there's other circumstances. And I believe this falls under other circumstances. Let's see, item number 2. Attorney McGrail and Attorney McCarthy. We have a few items on tonight's list. I just want to make sure in the order that we're reviewing them. Attorney McGrail, due to clients that you have here and timing, is there anything that you'd like to have first shown? You'll need to unmute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that. Good evening,
Okay.
everybody. I was saying where you couldn't hear me that Lovis Ave is number 2 on the agenda, and that is being continued. We're still working with the Conservation Commission. My client and their engineer will be back before the Conservation Commission Thursday night to show them what they're able to do with the buffer. So I spoke to Paul Revis on that, what our status was with the Concom. Paul suggested that I continue with your board tonight. I heeded his advice, and so we've continued, and we did so in advance.
Thank you. Is there any information you need from our board to move forward with the Conservation Commission?
No, not
Okay.
at this point. So I'm requesting that this will be continued to your meeting on the 26th, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
And then I can tell you also, I have the next 2 hearings, as far as Wildwood goes, that, I talked to you about the fact that that's registered land, so it's land court. And I'm working on the documents and compliances that are required prior to coming back for your endorsement on that. So once we're ready, Paul keeps on showing that on the agenda, which is fine. Once we're ready to do that, we'll be back. The subdivision has been approved. So it's really nothing on the planning board. It's really on us to get that done.
Okay. Thank you for the current information.
And then the other 2, North Ave and Salem Street, the order you have those listed in is fine.
Okay. And that's what we'll move to first. Thank you. Attorney McCarthy, in order of the A&Rs under other business for 84 Preston and Lancaster, is there any particular order that you'd like?
No, Mr. Chairman, I actually, the way it appears now is the preferred order. Sarah, who's on, and Ryan are both on for number 5, the
Okay.
84 Preston Street. So the order, it appears, is great.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Revis does a good job with these, that's for sure.
Sure.
All right. Item number 3 on tonight's. Yes.
I had a question before we go too far.
Yes.
Regarding Lovis Ave in the Concom, I know there's been a new makeup of the board.
Yes.
Does this reset and they need to start over again? Or can Brian explain what the process is now, since there's 2 board members on there that have not participated in any of the previous meetings?
Before Mr. McGrail, Attorney McGrail comments, for those of you who don't know, the Conservation Commission appointed a new person, and in that, another person resigned. So as Matt has mentioned, there's 2 people that are now off the board, and there's 2 new people that are not familiar with the project. Attorney McGrail, can you respond to Mr. Lowry's comments, questions?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. And honestly, Matt, I don't know the answer to that. We're going to have to vet that with the commission. They do have quite a few members. So my guess is that they will have enough qualified to proceed with this. But I can't give you a solid answer on that. It's a good question.
So we don't know how long this could restart, and it could take a while for it to go through, correct?
If that's the case, it could pose an issue. I don't think that is the case. I'm pretty confident on it, that it will not be the case. I believe that they're a 7-member commission, and I'm pretty positive that at least 4 are eligible to act on this.
Perfect. Any other comments, Matt or Bill? Okay, Mr. Revis, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I've lost my participants. Let me make sure I can get that back. I should not click on the one that says end meeting. Okay. So we'll start with public hearing, zoning map change, 3 parcels of land, west side of North Avenue, between 592 and 570. The change here is North Avenue, the zoning map change would be North Avenue, this address, 3 parcels of land, from single residence to general residence. So this is the 3rd meeting that we're reviewing this. Just to recap, let me stop my share and add the, okay. I guess I could have done that a different way.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you, Sherry, for staying. She's going to leave the meeting now, and I think we'll all have a nicer meeting because of that. Let's see. I am looking for North Ave. Okay. So North Ave, as you know, we're looking at the space here. That's this wooded area back in here, North Ave. This is the Knights of Columbus, the Juliana Salon, the dealerships. And in here, you can see the completed apartment, and then the newer one that is almost complete. We have some new information on this that Attorney McGrail will share once I do this quick recap. Sorry for the jumping around. I've been told not to share my whole window at once, my whole desktop. So, Topo Survey. There we go. Okay. So the change, zoning article number 22, to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaws of the town of Wakefield by amending the Wakefield zoning map dated May 2nd, 2016 by changing the zoning district designation of 3 parcels of land on the west side of North Avenue between 592 and 570 North Avenue, shown on the Wakefield assessor's map as parcel 47B on map 2A, parcel 2+ on map 2A, and parcel 47L on map 2A, currently within a single residence district to a general residence district as shown on the map below, and amending the zoning map such that the revised map bears a new date, and we'll update this date, May 5th, 2020, and amending the zoning text, section 190-70, zoning map such that the text is changed with the revised map date. The first sentence of section 190-7.a is replaced with the following. A, except as set forth below, the above zoning districts are shown on the map entitled Wakefield zoning map dated June 8th, 2020, or see what the town will do about it. So here is the piece of land, and you can see it's the double hatched area, not the B, that's business, that's a different zoning area. And the yellow that you see around it is single residence. And this area that's double hatched that we're discussing, I can zoom in, will be changing or on the town meeting article to change to general residence. In previous meetings, we've discussed what general residence is and what that means as far as square footage and the frontage width and the differences between the two, the number of stories and all that. If anybody has any questions, we can get to that too. But I'd like to turn it over to Attorney McGrill because there was some new information that we found out from the town engineer over the last week or so about the sidewalks, which the board was concerned with. Attorney
Yes,
McGrail?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail, representing Dana Lopez and Ray Nickerson, who are the owners of the property. Dana Lopez is a participant tonight. He is signed in and active. He has provided information and testimony to the board in the prior hearings on this. So a couple of things at the last meeting, there was discussions on the good aspects of this rezone, in that my client had explained that his goal with two-family dwellings would be to have a common driveway, and then 3 two-family dwellings, and we thought that that would be more conducive than just having 3 dwellings right on the roadway. And there would be a permitting process besides the rezone that he would have to go through to do that. There were a couple of concerns in that regard that were raised by planning board members, and one of which was the possibility of installation of sidewalks in front of this property. Mr. Chairman, you yourself raised that concern. You wanted these properties to be walkable. And then the issue came up on, whether 592 and 600, the apartment buildings, would have sidewalks eventually placed in front of those. So what I did is I corresponded with the town engineer, Mr. Renault, in 2 regards. One, to ask him if those apartment buildings, if it was planned that there would be an installation of sidewalks in front of them. And he responded that they would, that was going to occur. And then the second was, in the event my client and the planning board wanted to install sidewalks in front of the subject property, is that something feasible that could be done? And not only did he say it could be done, he said there were actually, they were contemplating plans to do that in the future to work with the 592 and the 600 property, in anticipating that someday potentially the KSC site might be developed. Who knows in the future where that might be. So we really got some good answers and good information on that. I forwarded you all the correspondence from Mr. Renault on the questions I posed to him and his answers. So I assume that you're familiar with that. The second issue is, who would pay for those sidewalks? Dana, who was on, is saying that, that if they did the 2-family project that they were contemplating here, that they would be more than willing to pay for the installation of those sidewalks as part of that project. So it would not be a cost to the town to do it. So, and the other issue that was raised by Matt Lowry was, and it was, and I said at the time, was a very valid and good issue. If we rezone this, if we, give our support to the rezoning and the town meeting does eventually approve it, what's to say that you're going to do the single driveway and the sidewalks with the 2-family houses, or just not put 3 lots and build 3 2-families on North Ave with multiple driveway cuts? So I think I addressed that also. I approached town council with the concept of a contract zoning theme, which would be that if the board were inclined to support this rezone, my client would enter into an agreement with the board that if 2-family dwellings were going to be constructed here, they would be done in a fashion with a common driveway, and they would also be done with installation of sidewalks at their expense in front. That would be that would be an agreement that will be entered between my client and the planning board. And then assuming town meeting passed it, there will be a restrictive covenant recorded at the registry of deeds that would bind that. So the planning board would be guaranteed that that was going to happen in the event that 2-family dwellings would be built there. We, as I discussed with town council, we would want those conditions limited to 2 families because, if he decided, if they decided they wanted to build 1-family houses there in the future, they would not want to be bound by any of those terms because that's their by right to do that today. So, I think there was some good dialogue and information. And I'm hoping it addresses some of the valid concerns of the board members and really puts this in a very positive light compared to, where we were a couple of weeks ago. I'm interested to hear the board's thoughts in that regard, Mr. Chairman. Bill, you're on mute.
Bill, if you're talking.
There we go. I couldn't find out how to unmute myself because I've hid my own video so I could just see everybody at a bigger size. Thanks. Thank you for the explanation, Attorney McGrail. This is so helpful, and I'm glad you reached out to the town engineer. And it makes me feel better about the project, understanding that it will be more walkable for the future tenants and residents. I'd like to open it up to the planning board, to Matt and Bill, if they have any comments or questions they'd like to address with Attorney McGrail.
Yeah, so this agreement, how would this go into effect? Would this go in before town meeting? It would have to, or I wouldn't be comfortable recommending it. Actually, we need to make a recommendation tonight, or we put it off again. How do we know that this agreement's going to get put in place?
Yeah, I think what would have to it's a great question, Matt. I think what would have to happen is I think you would have to continue this to your next meeting in 2 weeks. And during that time frame, I would negotiate and produce the documents with town council in conjunction with the chair. And then they would be presented at your next meeting and you would approve those and the agreement will be signed, prior to your recommendation. It would need to be signed prior to your recommendation, absolutely.
Okay, and it would run with the land with an expiration date or no expiration date? How would that handle?
Good question. So it would run with the land. So if it was sold, it would be subject to that restrictive covenant. Restrictive covenant is good for 30 years and it can be extended, and where it's an agreement with the town board, I believe it actually goes longer than that, but I can confirm that with town council.
All right, so this, we haven't really, you would almost have to do a sketch of what you're anticipating in order for us to know what might be there, right? I mean, there needs to be not only this agreement, but some rough framework as to what we expect is going to go in there. So would this be part of this agreement, or how would this work, logistically, how would this work out?
Well, I think we had shown a sketch that, basically what it would be is it would be one common driveway that would serve no more than 3 lots. And we would commit to that. And that's gonna need relief. I don't think that will need relief from your board. We talked about that. I don't think it will. Because your board, I think all 3 of those lots will have frontage on North Ave to meet the requirements. So I don't think we're going to need any waiver from your board. It would just probably be an A&R plan. And then it would be multiple facets of relief from the Board of Appeals for a common driveway, et cetera. Very similar to what was done with the Oxbow Pet Shop property. Those were A&R lots before the planning board. But anything that you wanted on the restrictive covenant as part of this will be included. And we thought that it was a commitment that it would be no more than one common driveway, and that it would, and that there would be sidewalks that would be paid for by the owner of the property. And I think the other thing it would have to contemplate, and I talked to Tom about this. So we would have to. It would have to have provisions in there that if the development went forward before the time for the installation of sidewalks, that they would have to be bonded, because maybe at that point the town's not ready for them to be installed. We don't know. But I would work those details out with Tom Owen.
All right, I would, I would vote favorably if there's assurance that this project is going to get constructed. What my fear is, that if there's no agreement, that we have the most inexpensive, three duplexes going there with 6 driveways, and so I'd feel more sure that of voting for it with this agreement.
Okay. Bill, do you have any comments or?
Oh, Matt covered them all, I think. Yeah, what he just said.
Now, this was, it's been nice to see a lot of our comments and the town's comments addressed. This is working out well. Mr. Revis, do you have any comments? I don't see any hands up, but I just, yeah. Mr. Revis?
I tend to agree with Mr. Lowry that a plan is needed to understand what this covenant is going to commit to.
Right. And
Yeah, we can, Dana, we can do that, right, Dana? Just a good, a little bit more than what we have provided. We can have Hayes draw something up.
Would it also show the parking areas, Mr. McGrail?
Right,
Yes,
I
I
think
can get,
The
ahead,
proposed
Dana.
common driveway?
no, I can contact John at Hayes tomorrow. That was just obviously a sketch we had last meeting. But we can get something a little more definitive, very similar to the other project you were talking about up the street. With the driveways, one driveway coming in and branching off to the 3 units. We would center the 3 lots so they'd have the frontage, what is it, 80 feet, I believe, Brian, now, the frontage on them
80
now?
feet.
for general, it's 80.
Yeah.
80. So we're gonna have about 100 on each anyway, because right now there's 100 feet for each of the lots, as it stands now.
Would it also
So,
border vegetated wetland line and the setback?
yeah, that's already been done. We delineated the wetland. And the other thing that I've actually reached out, Paul.
It would actually show that the buildings and the parking lot fits without encroaching.
Yes,
Yeah, we
that,
can, go ahead, Dana.
no, that was on the last sketch showing that it did stay outside the 25-foot buffer zone. But again, that was a sketch, so we'd get something more definitive drawn up in the next, the meeting's what, 2 weeks away?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure he can get something together before that.
yeah, he will put something together. And we can give it, it's got to be conceptual. The big commitment is the one driveway because, it has to go to the zoning board for a lot of relief. So, and so we can give you some conceptual that could be incorporated, but we can't lock everything in because, we don't know what they're going to require. We know that your covenant will require that it has to be one driveway. And if the zoning board said 2, then we couldn't do it because we'd be violating your covenant. So,
Brian,
I think
Why not allow an in and out driveway?
what, Paul?
Why not have 2 driveways, an in and out or something, some kind of crescent shape pull off? You want to
want that, Paul? Is that what you're saying?
Napkin scheme that you did for the last meeting.
Yeah, that had one driveway, Paul. Not. Are you saying you would like to see an in and out?
I may be safer. I don't know.
So you want to see a couple, and we can show you those options, and then we can model our covenant with what you decide is appropriate. So we have no problem doing that.
It's something that doesn't really work, and we don't know.
right.
Yeah, I just think in and out driveways and in those circumstances really don't work because then people don't know what to use or they just violate the in and the out. And visitors that come don't know which way to go. And, to me, it's better to just have one driveway cut that everybody uses. And I think it's going to be better for North Ave and better for the people across the street instead of multiple driveways. But we can talk to Hayes, Paul, and vet it. And we can probably get, I'm sorry?
That's what we need, I think. Let them see.
That's fine. Yeah, Dana, we'll ask John, when you talk to John tomorrow, John Owen, see if he can participate in that meeting in 2 weeks,
Absolutely. I
in
will.
case the board has questions of him.
Okay.
Yeah, the next meeting is on May 26th.
Yep. No, I appreciate it to the board members. It's been, there was, valid issues, and I think we all worked through these things to make this something that could be a real benefit. And quite honestly, I think that it enhances the possibilities of it being approved at town meeting. I think when people at town meeting say the thoughtfulness that went in on the planning board's part in the covenant that the planning board obtained with, money being spent for public sidewalks in one driveway cut where, right now there could be 3 by right. I think it's going to be a very good presentation to the town meeting members. So thank you. Thank you for your comments and efforts.
Any of the comments from the planning board or the town planner before we open up to the public? I don't see any hands. Are there any comments from the public?
Yeah, I have one comment. I remember seeing the plan with the.
I'm sorry,
three
Joanne, if you
buildings-
could state your name and your address.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Joanne, yeah, Joanne Schooler, 51A Chestnut Street. I remember seeing the picture of the 3 buildings with the single driveway. But it didn't show it in context of the land, which looks like it's in an L shape with the big portion of it going behind the new apartment building that's on North Ave. Can you describe it all, like where the buildings are on the lot? Are they close to where the Knights of Columbus is?
Hey, Brian, I looked through my email. I couldn't find that. Is that something that you shared your screen with last time?
I think I did. Let me see if I can answer Joanne's question here. Hang on.
Okay.
Give me a
If you-
second, Mr. Chairman. I'm just searching.
Yeah.
Let me see here.
And if you feel it's worth sharing your screen, please do.
Okay, it's going to take me a minute just to.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do, Mr. Chairman, let me forward this to you. That's okay.
Yep.
Might be easier. So this will I think help Joanne with what. Hang on. At least this will show the land, and I'm going to try to. So here's one that might be helpful. An aerial shot that I just sent to you. And let me see if I can find the plan that she's referring to.
I could see it flying through the air from your house to mine.
It's coming over. I think Dana sent this to me, not John. So let me,
Okay.
hang on. Here it is. Yep, I'm going to forward this. This is the plan that Joanne's referring to. I'm sending this, Mr. Chairman, right now to you, because that way you can control it. Okay. So these 2 plans, I think, will help us answer Joanne's question.
Okay. Is there one I should show first, or?
Probably the first one I sent you, because that kind of gives you a whole context of the property that Joanne mentioned, that it goes behind the other buildings. So that's kind of like an overhead shot that
Yeah, let
really
me
is helpful.
let me share that. And Brian, is that the correct one? The yellow outline back to.
Yeah.
You can see the train tracks to
Yeah,
the back.
that's our entire property. So I think that's what Joanne was referring to, how this property goes behind 592 and 600. And then, so that kind of gives a context of the whole property. Interestingly, in that regard, I also, this week corresponded with Town Administrator Mayo that my client actually has some interest in potentially donating a significant piece of that land to the town. Because you're going to see the next plan that you show does not really use a lot of the land for what we want to do. So maybe you could put the next plan up.
Working on it. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. I think I need to maybe alter this one a little bit. Let me
There is.
zoom and flip it. So Rotate clockwise, rotate clockwise. So that's the same orientation where up is north.
Yeah.
And you can see North Ave, the driveway or turnaround going in, and the three properties. And as Joe mentioned, oh, I'm sorry, who mentioned? Was it not Joe? Dana, my mistake.
Joanne.
25-foot
Oh.
back from the edge of the wetlands. So if you can't read that, that's what I just read. Edge of wetlands, 25 feet.
So this is significant, as Joanne mentioned, this is a significant piece out back. That a lot of it is wetlands that the Conservation Commission might be interested in. And Dana, I think you had said when you and I talked that there's also some uplands back there, right? Dana?
Yes, if you have the aerial, yes, if you have the GPS plan, it shows the tree line. So basically where the tree line is going around, there is uplands there.
Let me jump to,
Yeah, out the in the back.
yeah, let me jump to the actual,
Yeah, it looked like from that picture, like the properties were pretty close to North Ave and on the one section of the L, so to speak, in terms of the land. Like they're closer to where the Knights of Columbus is, right?
Yeah, they're up front, Joanne.
Mm-hmm.
you guys lose me?
The chairman's muted.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I think it disappeared. Where did I leave off? Were you able to see the Google map?
You were going to bring up a different plan?
I did. And then
Yeah,
it
you're going to
just,
bring the Google map up.
right.
We didn't see it.
Okay, can you see it now?
Maybe it's coming now. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so the Knights of Columbus, I think the trees are easy to see on this one. The stream runs through here,
Yeah,
which
you
is
need
about
to
10
pull
or
away
12
because
feet at the widest. What's that, Attorney McGraw? Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's better. I mean, that's better where you are now because it was just too close.
Dana, is this what you wanted to show? See?
Yes.
Can you zoom out a little bit,
Can you
Mr.
zoom
Chairman?
out a little, Chairman?
Yes.
Okay, so when I met with John Ogren, he explained to me that there was usable land in the back, but we would need another crossing beyond the area that was flagged out if we wanted to access it. So there is usable land back there. We have no interest in it. I don't know if the town has interest in it. We could potentially leave a right-of-way, maybe along the Knights of Columbus property to get to it.
Is this close to what you're thinking about?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good land back there with
do we-
Dana's stuff,
do we-
and we've reached out to the town administrator. Go ahead, Dana.
No, so he did mention that there is sort of not a stream, but there would be one crossing to get back there. Obviously, I think it's a little drier when you get real close to the lot at the Knights of Columbus. So if any access would have to come from that side if we were going to leave a right of way of some type.
Okay.
I mean, there might be some use for this land for, who knows, outdoor activity, hiking. People walk the lake. Maybe it's another place they can, maybe a trail. There's wetlands back there. Conservation Commission might be interested in it. But, there's really not going to be, and maybe the town has no interest, but we're certainly have started the process engaging to see if the town might be interested in it. to have it donated.
Okay. Joanne, you
So-
started by, you had a comment about the views and the plan. Do you have any other questions regarding that?
No, I think I understand about where the houses would be built. The only other thing is the stream that you can see from North Ave. I think that's around where Willard Road is, like right across from that. It's kind of a nice stream, so would that be in like somebody's backyard there, probably?
Let me see if I can get,
I think it's further,
I believe it's right in here. So you can see where that property stops. You can just see these
Okay.
trees. I think it's right here. I might be drawing it a little too wide, but in this area is where those trees are overhanging the stream. There's a culvert about 3 feet from the pavement, and that runs under and probably under to the lake.
yeah.
I can
Right.
stop the share, and I know I was showing this view before. I think this is where I lost you with the internet, not liking how close I was. But if I go to a street view and I click here, you can see there's the property being built. There's a utility pole, and the stream is right in here. You can see the water. And those are there's trees to the right side of the stream, and then there's trees to the south side or the left side in this view.
Mhm. Right. So would that stream potentially be part of the town land, or would that be owned by one of the people who buy the property?
Attorney McGrail or Dana, can you
I don't
answer
even know
that?
if it's on our I don't know. Yeah, I can. This is Brian. I don't know if it's even on our property. Dana, do you know?
It's about half and half. It goes on to the other property as well. Maybe a little more on our side, but if you go back to the sketch, you'll see where the wetland delineation shows
Mm-hmm.
in relation to the side property line.
I think it's 2 sketches. Where'd that other sketch go? You know what I do have? I have the Topo Survey. I believe this is there's North Ave. There's the Knights of Columbus, Blacksmith Enterprises. Following the contour lines, single white line, that's the pavement, there's the curbing, there's the head wall for the culvert, and you can see it reads ditch. But I do see there looks like, oops, sorry for jumping there. You could see the property line between single residence and business, and it appears from this that most of that stream, right to the middle of that head wall where the culvert is, lies into the property we're discussing.
Oh, I see, yeah. It looks like the line is like right down the stream.
Yeah.
It does. So you can see, I'm going to highlight, there's the line, and this dashed line is the edge of the wetlands. That is the edge of bordering wetlands. You can see the dash line. The head wall is here, and the curbing, oh, that's not, the curbing doesn't do that. There actually, I don't think there is curbing there, but that's where the grass hits the pavement.
Yeah, there's like these nice little posts there, these old posts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. So I know we're talking about the details of this, and I hope this helps. But as far as the zoning and the planning board recommending favorable action for the zoning change from single to general, I want to make sure we do stay on that topic. If there's background noise, please mute if you're not speaking. Are there any other questions from the public regarding this? Somebody has background noise. Please mute if you're not speaking. All right, Bill, I just muted you. Sorry. All right. So thank you. Thank you, Joanne.
Yep, thank you.
Any other comments from the planning board, or do we want to, hold on, let me pull this back together so I can exit this. I believe the next step is to close the public hearing. Unless there's any comments.
No, Mr. Chairman, I think we need to keep it open because we're going to be back before you with, more information, the plan that you want to see, and the draft agreement with town council and the covenant.
Is that part of our recommendation, or is that a step beyond that?
Well, I don't think, as we had discussed earlier, I don't think you want to make the recommendation until we know that that you have that agreement in place.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, that's up to you and the board members. I just think that that's, for security of the board, we want to make sure that we're going to be able to get that in place, because if you vote to recommend it, then that agreement goes RE or goes, becomes a problem.
Right, so I guess my point here is, do we want to close the public hearing or keep it open? We
I
don't
want to keep it open.
want to keep it open. All
I
right,
want to
thank you.
keep it open.
Okay. I'm convinced.
Paul Revis has his hand up.
I see Paul's hand. Thank you, Paul.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the topo map we just reviewed, that's the site plan I hope that we can have at the next meeting with the proposed duplexes and the driveways shown on that plan.
Okay.
That way we'll know if it fits within the Conservation Commission's limitations as well.
And I just want to look at that real quick. Obviously, Attorney McGrail, we got that from you and your client Dana.
No, you have it yourself.
What's that?
That's the
I
plan
think
you
that
have.
that is the,
That's
I
the
think
plan
that
you have.
plan is the,
Well, that's what I'm looking at. I can't remember actually how I received it. Maybe I looked it up.
You received it from me.
Oh, thank you. And it's
I
from
think that,
me.
Paul, I think Paul Reeves, I think that's the wetlands delineation plan that was approved by the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
Yes, it is, sir.
And I'm
We
looking at the
filed that
title
with
block, and it is Hayes Engineering.
Yeah.
That'll be the best plan.
Yeah, what we'll do is, we'll Dana and I will talk to John Owen tomorrow, and then we will get draft plan done early. We'll show it to Paul. We'll get, so Paul can have a chance to look at it to make sure that we're putting on there everything that he anticipates and wants to see and what the board will want to see. So we'll get that done quickly so we have a chance to make some revisions to it, Paul, in case you're not getting what you want, rather than just bringing it that night. Let's make sure that you're satisfied.
Excellent.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for your comment, Paul. Any other comments before we move on to the next item on tonight's agenda? Nope. Thank you, Attorney McGrail.
So that's continued, Mr. Chairman, until the 26th.
That's 26th is our next meeting, and Hopefully that's enough time.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And if you, do you need the topo survey, or you said you'll work with Hayes on this?
Yeah, Hayes has it. They did it. So
Okay, right,
we'll be
right.
fine. We have everything that we need, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Let me share. Next item on tonight's agenda, public hearing zoning map change 102 Salem Street to general residence. Look at that, I had that one. Okay. Matt, can you see the screen?
Yep.
Excellent. Zoning article number 23, to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaws of the town of Wakefield by amending the Wakefield zoning map dated May 2nd, 2016 by changing the zoning district designation of 102 New Salem Street, Wakefield Assessor's Map 29-136-012, currently within the single residence district, and the industrial district to general residence as shown on the map below. And amending zoning text section 190-7 zoning map such that the revised zoning map bears a new date. The first sentence of section 190-7.a is replaced with the following. A, except as set forth below, the above zoning districts are shown on the map entitled Wakefield Zoning Map dated June 8th, 2020, or see what the town will do about it. So we're looking at this, I believe, for the fourth time in our meeting. And just in my notes, I know the discussion was about whether the zoning, industrial business, general residence, and I know Joe is here, correct? And Attorney McGrail, that's great. We had a discussion whether the idea of uniform zoning, meaning is there one section that is a dot on the map that we're making an exception for this area to be rezoned to general residence, even though surrounding it is industrial on one side and single residence on the other. And we know this will be an improvement, and we understand that. I'm not sure as a board, and we could discuss this, that it's going to have a difference with what the property is and whether it's going to stay as a residence or it's going to move to industrial. So the idea to discuss this any further, we also discussed one other thing that was about using a variance. And I think it came up where, and Attorney McGrail, please correct me, where the variance is not allowed to change a use group, I believe. Was that correct?
Correct. We don't have use variances. Yes, we do not have use variances in Wakefield. They're not allowed.
Okay. With that, I want to open it up. Attorney McGrail, if you have any comments to add to my quick summary, that would be great. And then we can have discussions with the planning board, town planner, and then open it up to the public.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, we appreciate all the time that the board has spent on this, a lot of time and consideration. Mr. Tavano has given, I think, compelling testimony on what he plans to do for the lot and how it's going to be a benefit for the neighborhood, especially the single residence district that kind of comes into this industrial district and just add more of a buffer. We also submitted a document or a letter of support from some folks in the area for this. We know there's concerns on, singling out this piece. We talked about spot zoning and how that would not apply because there is some planning concept and good plan behind this. We also talked about, the other potential uses on this. If the zoning change doesn't happen, it will probably end up being a contractor's yard. There's really a down zoning here occurring, which very rarely occurs anywhere. it really just fits what Mr. Tavano does. And so I think we've made some very good, compelling, passionate arguments for this. And I think the way we left off on it was that a couple of the board members really just wanted some more time to think about it. So, but, you know, I don't think that Joe or I can really add anything more for what we've already provided. I also did give an example in town where there has been a rezone to a different district where there was no district that touched it that was similar. So there is this has happened in the town before. And then I think the other concern that was raised by the board was, you know, would this set a precedent for future? And, you know, and I stated, you know, there's no precedence in amending zoning bylaws or maps. Every property that's changed has to stand on its own. Every property that is changed has its own reasoning or theory to do that. And, you know, so I really don't think that the board has to worry about setting any precedent, and, you know, it wouldn't be binding on the board. We talked about the fact that this board has addressed what you have referred to as troubled properties in town. The property at 14 Nahant Street, which was a mess and, you know, a split zone, and we got creative. So some of these troubled properties need some creativity. This one needs a zoning change to be creative, because when you have a split zone of industrial single residence, there's just really nothing you can do with it, because every use that's allowed in the industrial district is not allowed in the single residence district, and vice versa. So we're asking for you to help us make this something better than it is today, or that it could become.
Thank you, Attorney McGrail. I don't really have any other comments on it. Matt or Bill, and Bill, you are muted because of background noise, but feel free to unmute yourself and add any comments.
He's still muted for some reason. While he's trying to unmute himself, I guess I'll say something. I have thought about this over the last couple of weeks. You know, I'm kind of against this picking a zone and not being contiguous with the same zone, but I have thought this through a little bit more, and you did give a convincing argument of why in this particular situation, this would be the way to go for this. I still disagree about calling this a buffer. With adding, you know, more people a buffer, I kind of disagree with that, but it is a better use for this site. Yeah, for the most part, it is a better use. Right now, it's underutilized, and with the permitted uses right now, I don't think it's doing the town any good. So I will be shifting my position and supporting this. But I just want you to know, it is, like Brian pointed out, this did not come easily. It did take some convincing. So if this does happen again, whether I'm here or not, I just hope that people look at it and flesh out all of the options. So that's where I stand at this point, is that I will be supporting this because it is a unique situation.
Thanks, Matt. So Attorney McGrail, you shouldn't say anything else tonight.
I'll mute myself.
Bill, I can see you about to sit down if you have any comments.
No, I didn't.
All right.
Couldn't get unmuted. I don't know. I listened to everything.
You can put your hand up and I can help you with that too.
Yeah, okay.
Now that I am the host. Did you hear Matt's comments?
Yeah, I heard some of them because I had to.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sure. So Matt is now in favor of this zoning bylaw change after the presented information.
That was for, right,
Sorry?
and that was for the property with the apartments in the industrial zone, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. No, if Matt is okay with it, I am too.
Okay. Mr. Revis, do you have any comments to add?
Chairman, I have no additional comments.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up to the public if there are any questions. Okay, thank you. And everybody's input, as always, is so helpful for us to dig a little deeper, find out some more information, and hopefully get to a good solution. So I believe this process works well.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public participation portion of this discussion.
Thank you, Matt. Bill, second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Public hearing for the zoning bylaw change to general residents at 102 Salem Street. Public hearing is now closed. And as the planning board, do we want to discuss recommending or not recommending favorable action? I believe we have discussed it enough to come to a decision.
Yeah, I've got nothing else to discuss on this, so.
If a motion can be made, planning board recommends favorable action. Let me pull up the correct.
I'll make a motion that we recommend favorable action at town meeting for this article.
I'll second
Bill, a second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
that.
Let the record show unanimous in favor recommendation, favorable action for zoning article number 23.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board very much for all your time, patience, and efforts in this one. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Looking forward to seeing where this goes. Thanks.
I'm going to sign off. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, Attorney McGrail. And I have to apologize. I don't know if my whole family is streaming live video of something, but my internet connection keeps bugging out. So if for some reason, I know Matt and Bill and Paul Revis, you all have my phone number to text me if needed. If something does stop working, please let me know.
Yeah, and we're down here in Greenwood. We've got good internet connection, unlike up where you are. So we'll carry on.
Well,
So.
when we moved here a long time ago, we were the first, the FiOS truck was going through our neighborhood, and I had to ask our IT manager what that meant. So he said, no, sign on to it right away. So we've been Verizon FiOS for 14 years. It's been working well so far. All right. So next item on tonight's list, number 5, A&R plan, 84 Preston Street and Blue Jay Circle. I know we had a, I want to make sure before we start, Attorney McCarthy, make sure I have the latest and greatest plan. I want to share. Okay.
That does look like the latest and greatest, Mr.
I
Chairman.
believe I looked through the emails and I believe this is the latest.
I
So
believe it is.
let me just make sure I have my participants in chat up. It keeps closing every time I switch a screen. It's not annoying yet, but it's getting there. Okay. I'm glad we don't have 60 people in the meeting. It would be a lot more difficult. Although I'd love to have 60 people in this meeting. Tell your friends. Attorney McCarthy, I'd like to turn it over to you and your client to share this plan.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, everybody. So I'm representing Patricia Ingersoll, who trustee of the Christopher Trust, which owns the property out on Preston Street. Attorney Sarah Radigan is online with us as well, and she represents Ryan Pfeiffer and the Condominium Association, which is located on Blue Jay and shown on the plan. Essentially, the proposal here is to split what's referred to on the plan as Lot B. It's essentially that little triangular portion of land coming out onto Blue Jay Circle in between the two properties. And it also,
let me just see if I can zoom in.
yeah, you're right on it there. Yep,
Right.
that's perfect. So it's that little triangular piece that you see a little bit left of your pointer.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. So
Okay, now I'm trying to get it so you can, there you go.
all right, so you can see the reference to Lot B right there, 1,060 square feet. So it's that half bulb, looks like a half a light bulb there, and it extends around the corner and includes that triangular portion of land that's shown. That's all one proposed piece. That would all, yeah.
There we go. Okay.
Sure. That would all become part of the Christopher Trust land. The Christopher Trust land presently is 3 lots, 85 to 87, in the light gray, font there. Essentially, what would happen is we would create 2 lots out on Preston Street and rounding onto Blue Jay. What's shown there, and we can see, is Lot 1, showing 6,990 square feet, would be merged with Lot B and would become that Lot 3 with 8,050 square feet. And the other Lot 2 would be created as well with 8,000 square feet. So in essence, it's that Lot B being merged with what is currently the Christopher Trust property, which will result in the creation of 2 lots. At the end of the day, it would be Lot 2 and Lot 3, both conforming in terms of area. We are in a general residence district with conforming with area, which is the 8,000 square foot requirement, as the board members know, and 80 feet of frontage. So that's essentially it. It's proposed as an approval not required plan because all of the resulting lots would conform with zoning. They have the requisite frontage and area. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Let's see. So I think it's good to probably leave this up here.
I have a question. So,
Yep, go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
I have a question. Were we emailed a copy of this plan? Because I know I got a different copy, so I haven't seen this version before.
Yes, this
When was
this was sent out a day or 2 ago in response to it's Paul. I think it went out on Monday. I think you had some comments, Matt, about what had happened with the plan was Paul didn't include the layering when it converted from Paul Finocchio, when it converted from CAD to PDF. I think it got a little more confusing. And I went to Paul Finocchio and asked him to clear it up, and I believe it was sent out on Monday.
Matt, I have the emails marked from 8:13 this morning is when, this is the plan I'm pulling it from, the email message that I'm pulling it from.
Yeah, I didn't receive that one, so.
Other items on this that were not on the previous?
No.
Okay.
The only thing was
From
Paul
Friday.
Finocchio, the surveyor, was able to add the layering in so that the old lot line showed as light gray as opposed to it all being the same font and everything.
Right, because it was very confusing where it was the same
It was.
line. Yes.
It was, yeah. And Paul Finocchio, go ahead. Sorry.
Could you send, I don't have a copy of this plan. This is not the version I had just reviewed. So this is a new version, nothing to do with layers because there's a detail on there that wasn't there before. So I have not seen this previously. I'd like a copy of it if you could email it to me.
Matt, I'm sending it to you right now. Sorry about that. Let me get back to that one. Okay. And if, just to make sure, this plan notes it was revised on 5/11. Original date, April 21st.
I have that. That's what I see.
Okay. I do just want to confirm that we're on the correct one before we get any further. Okay.
That is the correct one.
Okay. And 31. That information's the same. So the detail that Matt was mentioning is this detail A. That's not to scale, showing
Oh, right, right.
the existing drain easement.
That's right. One of Matt's comments was that, not that it was required, but it would have been beneficial to have the existing drain easement shown. So that Paul added that. Finocchio, Mr. Finocchio added that.
Let me, okay. Matt, is there any part of this plan you'd like me to zoom into for more information, or Bill?
I'm just looking at it right now for the first time, so I have a copy of it now.
Yep.
Okay.
I would prefer that we get these before the meeting, so we're not, you know, I have some time to digest this because you know me, I like to go through and take a look at stuff, so.
I'm fine with giving you some time to review.
review.
I'm sorry, Matt. I believe I thought I mailed that to you, but I can't check my emails with the Zoom function up here. I think I mailed it to Mr. Spalding this afternoon or this morning. It was early this morning.
It was. It went to, yes. Yeah, it was forwarded from Paul
Was it just
Finocchio.
you?
Yes, the email does note from 8:13 this morning. It was just to me. And I apologize. I was in a symposium from 9 to 2 today.
Yeah. I apologize to you, Mr. Lowry, for that too.
Okay.
That was my slip.
Right. And I think the latest plan that was sent to the planning board, all of us, was from Friday, May 8th. So the changes that we see in this one has to do with the easement and the layers of the existing lines being a halftone.
That's correct. There was no substantive change at all to the proposal, but
Okay.
this version was intended to address some of the confusion that was generated from, you know, the lack of differentiation that Mr. Lowry had pointed out. And as we just discussed, the detail relating to the easement was added in response to a comment.
Understood. And I can see the difference there is it's a little bit larger, not to scale version, showing some detail of how far off the old lot line the easement sits.
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, hi.
Hi, this is Sarah Radigan. I was wondering if I could just ask a brief question.
Please, yes, please do. And if I understood from Attorney McCarthy's, and you are the lawyer for the condo on Blue Jay, the condo association?
Yes, that is correct. So I represent the folks who live at the building right behind the subdivision number 5-1, number 5-2.
Okay.
From Trilogy Law, 12 Marshall Street, Boston.
Okay, thank you.
And this is really just a sort of a technical question about how, assuming that the planning board is going to accept this as an A&R plan and sign this document plan, it will be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And just one note that I don't know how well it will reproduce in the multi-layer, you know, the sort of the different toned imaging here.
Okay.
Mike McCarthy, I'm sure, can tell you from his experience of title work that sometimes it does make this easier for review, but review by the planning board because we're sitting here at a computer. But as these things get scanned and then uploaded through the registry system, sometimes the paler print gets lost.
Thank you. I'm making a note of that.
A little bit more of a technical question. I'm not sure how that.
I think, Sarah, what we would do is this would be produced in full-size Mylar. And then I'd coordinate, assuming this were voted for endorsement, with Mr. Revis to obtain the signature. So it would be a full-size, high-resolution plan that would be recorded. It wouldn't be the PDF.
Perfect.
We'd have to get it over there somehow.
Right. I think
Sure.
Sarah's concern is that when it does get scanned in to the Registry of Deeds, that it would be more difficult to see those half-tone lines. Matt, you have more experience with this than I do. Is that an issue?
I mean, it shouldn't be an issue. So, but
Great.
shouldn't be an issue.
Yep,
Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your point, Sarah.
It just, I look at as an eye towards, do you satisfy the rules and regulations of the board? I am a surveyor. I also look at it critically for a presentation, but I don't comment on that because that's not, not my purview. But if it doesn't make sense, I'm going to point out that something doesn't make sense, like the easement did not, there left some confusion there about where the easement extended. So that's why I brought that issue up.
I think it was helpful.
It is, this plan I'm seeing here is a little bit better presentation than the one I saw before. But again, that's just my, however you present the plan is up to you, as long as it complies with the board's regulations is all I really care about.
We appreciated the comments and they were helpful.
Thank you for the comments. This, besides that, it seems straightforward. There's no changes, and as you mentioned, Attorney McCarthy, there's no reason for a variance with the size of the lots and the frontage for the general residence. Are there any other comments from the board?
No, I've got no comments.
Okay. I'm sorry? Mr. Revis, do you have any comments?
No comments.
All right, thank you. Any comments from the public?
Well, just that we don't really need to ask anything from the public because this is an A&R. This is a by right issue. So
Understood, but if there are any abutters, do we want to hear from them? Or is it out of order?
well, even if we did, there's really nothing we can do about it. It's a statutory process we're doing here. So,
Understood. All right, thank you.
it's not like we have a choice whether we want to sign this or not, as long as it meets the.
Understood. Matt, do you want to make a motion to endorse?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to endorse the plan of land of 5 Blue Jay Circle and 84 Preston Street, Wakefield, Massachusetts, prepared by PJF and Associates, dated April 21st, 2020, last revised May 11th, 2020.
Bill?
And I'll
Second?
second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. On the record,
Thank you.
is anonymous, unanimous. Sorry, my brain's starting to fade. My apologies. Thank you, Attorney McCarthy.
Thank you very much to all of you.
Okay.
All right, so what's the process in getting the Mylar and getting it signed? How are we doing this?
I would propose that I deliver it or have it delivered to Paul Revis, and then he can quarterback with you guys in terms of obtaining the signatures.
Why don't we discuss this at the end of the meeting with Paul and the board to figure out the best scenario to get this signed?
Maybe we quickly do it here at the moment.
Okay.
I would prefer we do a Pony Express. Mr. McCarthy gets the final Mylar in hand with 3 prints, copy of the application and the check, and take that either to Bill DeMori or Bill to Matt Lowry. Have Matt sign it. Matt, you take possession and then hand it off to Bill DeMori. And then Bill, if you could ferry it over to Mr. Spalding's house and get the last signature.
No problem.
And then we can try to figure out how to get it back to town hall or get the Mylar directly to Mr. McCarthy.
The other alternative I can offer is I can just ferry it around to everyone and then we'll bring it back to you, Paul. So we don't put anything on the board.
And I can just get it mailed to me from either whoever ends up in possession.
Okay.
I would have it, and I could have it mailed to you.
So just to recap that quickly,
I wouldn't need the Mylar back. I would just need a couple of signed prints, the check, and the application.
Understood.
okay. So please, I'm trying to think. I'd like to be the last person on that list, just to review, make sure everything's in order before it goes back to Mr. Revis.
Understood. Will do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe you have a question.
I'm looking for my participant. It disappeared again. No questions up here. Let me look in chat. Yes, Sarah, please ask a question.
That was actually from earlier. I am all set. Thank you very much.
Oh, you are. Thank you. And I apologize that the chat disappears when I change to a different screen. And I have to apologize again. I would say, attorney, I didn't want to butcher your last name.
Oh, that's fine. It's
How do you say
Radigan. It's Radigan, just in
Okay.
case I get to be in front of you again.
Thank you.
I
That's
have the
much
same
easier than it
thing.
looks.
I have the same issue with running a meeting and trying to keep ahead of a chat. It's difficult.
Okay.
But
Thank
thanks
you.
very much.
You're welcome. The next item on tonight's agenda is A&R plan for Lancaster Road. Oh, look at that. I got it on the first try. Excellent. So I believe this is the latest plan. It was the only plan. And the property on Lancaster Road. Let's look. If you're familiar with this, it's a little bit different. Charles Street turns into Holland Road, and then Lancaster Road, and there's a lot of wooded property behind it. Attorney McCarthy, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So again, Michael McCarthy, office at 1 Center Street in Wakefield. This is, I represent D&D Realty Trust. This A&R plan, as you have it before you this evening, is essentially a takeoff from the plan that this board approved, another A&R plan on February 13th of 2018. And essentially what it is, and functionally what it is what are shown now is lot 3, and my eyesight is not that good. I think
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I don't see it that well, but yeah.
Is that better?
Yes, that is. 2A and 3 are essentially a split of a prior A&R lot. So it's really, you know, it's the result is 2 conforming lots. We're in a single residence district. Both lots exceed the area requirement. Both lots have and exceed the requisite frontage. So, you know, on a fact basis, relevant fact basis, that's essentially it. We're splitting one lot into lot 2A and lot 3 from a prior A&R plan.
Understood. I know we've had some messages back and forth from the town engineer about the road. And as the board understands, and as the town planner understands, we had a different engineer when this was approved. And now with our current engineer looking deeper into the road, the construction, the drainage, I just wanted to make sure that was brought up to you, Attorney McCarthy, and if you have anything you want to share about that.
Surely, yes. I reached out to Bill Renault today to set up a meeting with him and whoever it's appropriate, certainly you know, the owner, to go over the drainage. So I think what Bill Renault is saying is that with respect to the drainage, that we do have a local bylaw that relates to land disturbance and drainage. If you're not getting although we have been to Concom on this, so it may be exempt, but nonetheless, we're willing to meet with him, talk to him, and certainly if this is covered by the local drainage bylaw, then we'll be off to the DPW advisory board, who would have jurisdiction over the drainage review. There was a full drainage study done, I'm told by my client. I wasn't involved in it personally with the Conservation Commission, but we are happy to meet with Bill Renault, the town engineer, to go over this. And certainly if there's, you know, issues that need to be brought before the DPW advisory board, then that's what will happen.
And do you want to wait for a planning board discussion until that meeting is completed?
No, I don't think it may be necessary to go before the advisory board, but it wouldn't change the makeup of the lots from an A&R perspective. I don't think it's directly relevant to the
Okay.
A&R consideration, but I know that you're interested, and I want you to know that I've been in touch with him, and we will
Okay.
set up a meeting with him.
Thank you. Just to take a look at this locus, I know this helped me a lot because I drove out there and it was actually difficult to find. Pinned between Stark Ave and Charles, where Charles turns to Holland, you can see where this sits. And this is right here is Main Street. And I know reviewing the plan, I didn't have any comments about the lots, but I did have a comment about the road. And I just wanted to make sure that the topic about the conversation with the engineer came up. Are there any comments from the planning board regarding this plan?
So are we deferring on this? So what's the process here?
Well, that's why I asked Attorney McCarthy if he wanted to wait till he had the meeting to defer this, or do we want to discuss it tonight? And he feels comfortable discussing tonight. So if you have any comments.
Are you looking for an endorsement tonight?
Yeah.
Or,
Yes. Yes. Yep.
So you're looking for an endorsement tonight to get this, and then you're going to go to the town and then resolve the other issues?
Right. If there are any other issues, that would be it would be like going to the zoning board if we needed a variance. There's a separate bylaw, a separate drainage and land disturbance bylaw that in this case, the advisory board to the DPW would have jurisdiction over that. So we would get this just, and if it's akin to what Brian was doing with going to the ZBA on the other matter, it's a separate issue. And, you know, we'll meet with them as appropriate.
Well, I know there's a little confusion here about whether this road complies with the standards as from the opinion of the current town engineer. I do know we were sent some pictures that I'm not sure who took these pictures out there. It shows the road that we had heard basically testimony on the last time that we had had this before us.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a lot of work out there continually. The road it looks like it's been degraded with equipment running on it. So, and I also know that, I mean, you do show the pavement, but it looks like on the uphill side, there's like a retaining wall, basically in a ledge cut into the right of way. So stuff that's not really depicted on the plan. So at this point, I would be more inclined to wait to see how this progresses. We do have 3 weeks or 21 days before we act on this. So this is something that we could take it up at our next meeting, but there's a lot of discrepancies here that I would like to have cleared up before we move forward. So.
Attorney McCarthy, is it fine if we, is it okay with you if we push this to the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just make the point, if I may, still, having said that, the road as it currently exists is as it was approved in 2018. There was I think there was a representation on that plan or in that approval that the finish coat would be put down when all the construction was done. So it would be neatened up, but nonetheless, if the board is asking, to continue it to the next meeting, then yes.
Thank you. We understand what was approved in 2018. And Matt, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to just point out, there was no approval of any road during our last endorsement of whether this plan complied with the rules and regulations. So
I agree. It doesn't need to comply. It does not need to comply with the rules and regulations. As town council's memo that Bill Renault had sent, it's fine if it's a gravel road.
Mm-hmm.
What was implicit in the 2018 approval is that the access was adequate. And the access is no different today than it was in 2018. It really is a question of whether you can access the lot. It hasn't over the road. The lot that was, one of the lots that was approved was at the very end of Lancaster. In this case, it's the beginning of Lancaster. So it really is a question of functional access. It does not need to meet the town subdivision standards with regard to roadways. As in 2018, as with other hearings I've had before you, there's been concerns or interest in making the road comply with current town standards. So we defer on that. We certainly don't want to pick an argument or engage in an argument. So in this case, what we were able to show the last time was the roadway contract, which had the spec details on it. There were borings done and they were shown and stamped on the plan, showing that in terms of the underlayment in the subsurface as well as the rough coat, it would, in that respect, comply with the current construction standards. That's not to say it complies in all respects with the roadway standards under the subdivision bylaws in Wakefield. Nor does it need to under the law.
Okay, if I could finish what I was saying. What I was trying to say was, before you interrupted me, is that I was just merely pointing out that we did not approve it last time
And I wanted to point out to you that, to correct you, that we did not approve the roadway or anything. We endorsed a plan. So that's what I was trying to get to. And you know, I let you speak. I would prefer that you let me finish my thoughts before you jump down my throat.
I apologize. I think there's a little delay. I definitely did not intend to cut you off, so I apologize for doing that.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Mr. Revis, could we have the Lancaster and on our next meeting, the 26th on the agenda? And that would run out, that would, when we have to meet on it, our next meeting wouldn't be until the 9th of June.
So we can put this on the next agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you. And
In
if there,
the meantime, Mr. McCarthy's going to meet with Mr. Renault.
right. And if any comments come out of that, Attorney McCarthy, if you can send them to Paul and he can distribute to the board, thank you.
I certainly will. I certainly will.
And thank you
One
for
other
your
thing,
time. Sorry.
yeah, there's been like an action taken from the town that has been ignored from the developer. Is that correct?
Oh, that I was not aware of that. I did talk to my client today. He said he hadn't gotten anything in the mail at all regarding this. He was in Florida quite a bit over the last couple of months, but that's something we'll have to address. I was not at all aware of that.
All right. Again, it's not something that this board has
Right.
purview over, but your client is coming to the board in good faith. Allegedly, we would like to make sure that he, you know, adheres to being a good neighbor and comply with any orders that the town has imposed.
I will, now that I'm involved, I will do my best to make sure that happens.
Could you, excuse me, could you enlighten me of what this clean hands issue is?
May I?
Yes, please.
So there was a comment from the town engineer that a cease and desist of some sort had been, I'll use the word served or delivered on I guess my client, but that's what I need to look into. That I got the town engineer's comments yesterday, really last night. So I had a brief conversation with my client about it, and I'll look into it further. But in any event, we are in contact with the town engineer, and we'll be meeting with him. And that's, you know, that's where the that issue arises. So that's where we'll hope to address it.
All right, could I, so the plan that's up on the screen, is this the one you're presenting to us tonight?
Yes.
All right, I'm just going to point out that this does not comply with our rules and regulations. It is not stamped. So as far as I'm concerned, this plan has not been submitted to the board. So what I just commented about 3 weeks or 21 days does not apply, because the plan presented to us does not meet the town's rules and our rules and regulations. So we will take this up at our next meeting and continue from there as far as I'm concerned. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you. Thank you, Matt. Good eyes. So the 21 days will start from the resubmission of this plan with an engineer, a surveyor stamp, professional stamp at the next meeting.
It will start when you sign the receipt and when you receive a corrected plan.
Right.
It won't start when the
Correct.
plan's
So
submitted. It will start right at a meeting where you receive a corrected plan with a complete application.
Okay. And that's when the 21 days starts. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for clarifying.
Can I just say one more thing, Mr. Chairman, before
Yes, please.
we continue? I just wanted to address Matt. Matt, I really didn't mean to cut you off, and I certainly don't, I must have given the impression that I was jumping down your throat, but that's not what my intention was. So I just want to be clear on that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I don't think there's anything else on this. Let me stop the share, jump to, okay. Thank you, Attorney McCarthy.
Thank you.
Yep. Next item was already discussed with Attorney McGrail, the definitive plan endorsement for Wildwood. Next item is topics not anticipated by the chair. I do want to add that I had a lovely conversation with Joanne Schooler, who is still in this meeting. We spoke on Saturday at length about, she had some questions about what the planning board is and what we do and how we operate, what our goals are, and a few other things, and got to know each other. And I have to say it was a great conversation. It recently, I think today, Joanne sent a cover letter. I did not have a chance to open it yet and look at it, but I will forward it to Paul Revis. And as we know, the recommendation of somebody that to be appointed to our board would be filling the seat of Paul Revis, which his term would be up in 2021.
Excuse
So-
me, not Paul Revis.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sorry, Bill.
Paul Revis will be running for the planning board in 2021 after his retirement. I'm sorry. Paul Semenza, with his resignation, his term is up in 2021, and the appointed position would be in a meeting between the town administrator, the town council, and the planning board, yet to be determined. So I just wanted to bring that up and see if anybody had any questions. And Joanne's here if anybody has any questions for her.
Now, Mr. Chairman, the town council may advertise and seek other candidates.
Understood.
So we don't know how that will, I don't know how that will unfold.
I don't either. And in the past, my experience is they haven't really done that for our board. I know with John resigning, Chris Fowley took his position as we submitted his information as a suggestion to be appointed to the town administrator at that time. I can't remember the exact details, but I believe that's all we did.
I think the current procedure is quite different.
Okay.
Adopted. But I may be applying the procedure that they use for the appointments that they make solely versus the ones that we would make jointly with the planning board.
Okay. I know there's another person
I think
who,
we do a discovery process on what the procedure is.
okay. There is another resident that inquired to me about the position, the vacancy, and same as Joanne, asked some questions, but he hasn't been in any of the meetings, so I'm not sure how serious he is about it. So that was one point I wanted to bring up. I have another point I want to bring up too, and I want to share my screen to, let me close the 25 things I have open. Okay. And let me share.
You're going to be a Zoom instructor soon.
Oh my goodness, please don't say that. I just want to make sure I don't make a mistake during the meeting and share something like my personal email, like it's going to pop up now, but I'm going to switch to The open meeting laws. I want to make sure that we understand as a board how the open meeting laws work, and there have been some recent amendments on these too. So the open meeting law executive order suspends certain provisions. If you're interested in reading through it, it's a quick read, but I suggest you taking a look. There's some explanation of how an online meeting needs to work, an internet-based and basic connection to it. But the public body, and so here, this part here, adequate alternative means of public access. So this is talking about the video conference and other technology that's used. A municipal body for that reason, so the economic hardship despite best efforts. So this is the part that we, whether people aren't attending or we have a clerk who is not attending to take meeting notes, which is where I'm going with this. So the public meeting must offer its selected alternative means, and you can see here that goes through a couple different options and how that works. I just want to make sure that if you need to look into more detail, it's in here. Two things I want to talk about. One, about the meeting notes. It's really frustrating for me right now. I do have my notes, and this is being recorded, but I know when we meet tomorrow with Mr. Mayo, Town Council Representative, Mr. Mullen, Town Council, and Paul Revis, I want to be clear on what we as a board feel. I don't want to be speaking for me and my frustrations. I want to be speaking for the board. Right now, I feel we are not doing the justice to the town by not having written notes published and approved in a timely manner, meaning 30 days from when the meeting is held, to them posted on our town website. Would anybody like to comment on that?
What are Linda's intentions?
I did not receive a message back from her tonight. I did receive a message back from her before the last meeting saying that she does not have the technology. I could pull up her email and speak verbatim, but she does not have the technology, which I'm sorry, I've seen her with her smartphone at the meetings. All it takes is a phone, and I mentioned that to her in today's email message, that the connection can be listened to or watched through a smartphone. We also, I mentioned, we also have the video recording, and there was a new thing I learned today in a webinar, that there's a closed caption part that actually documents all the speech, and that can be captured too. I couldn't find the setting tonight, but I'm going to ask Sherry about it, and Todd from the town.
Well, I believe we have $250 in our budget per meeting for the clerk to do the minutes. So if we need to get a clerical person to do the minutes, we have the funds to do that. We should do that. We should
Okay.
find an alternative and fill the gap that we have right now, and then see what we're going to do going forward. And I think that that's part of the conversations tomorrow.
I'm sorry, Paul, I missed that last part.
I think that that's part of the conversation tomorrow, is how that will be handled going forward.
It is. And I wanted to make sure, and thank you for your comments. I also want to hear from the board, from Matt and Bill, to see how they feel about it.
So what is the meeting tomorrow? It's to figure out what we should have been doing all along, or what?
No, I think it's more about the logistics of what happens when I'm gone.
It was three parts. One part was about Paul, his retirement and what the town is planning to do. The other concern was about the meeting minutes and how they are being recorded. And the third item, I don't want to pull up my
Who's going to staff the board, do the agendas?
Oh, it was in how do we appoint, how's the replacement? So those were the three items.
All right.
The first one with Paul Revis retiring was the biggest one for me, where having a clerk to post advertisements, all the plans, organization, working with the town clerk, making sure all the checks and everything are processed. That's something that I don't think any of us here on the board, first of all, have experience with. We've witnessed it, but I'm not sure any of us are willing to take that task on. And a true clerk, which is what the other boards do, they take care of that.
So,
Exactly.
so not only that, what happens to basically all the documents that Paul has filed away all over these years? Is there a plan for what happens with that?
No, not as yet.
It's what I thought, so.
It will come up in the meeting tomorrow, Matt, and I will report back to you and Bill with whatever I learn.
Because, yeah, as it is, and I've expressed this for years, is that trying to get documents posted on the website, current documents, has been a nightmare. And with a new person coming in with the position of actually moderating and filling content on the website, it appears to have gotten even more difficult. So this is a disservice to the town that documents cannot be posted and viewed by people. And I'm extremely frustrated with it because at a bare minimum, you put the documents that we have so people can see. Otherwise, it looks like you're hiding things and or you're not trying to put information out there. So
I agree, Matt. Transparency is the most important thing we can do. I mean, I understand our open meeting laws, but the transparency on the town website is an ease of finding plans so people, the public can come prepared to the meetings. It's so important.
yeah, and I'm not trying to say it's just this board, it's everything. I look to see the plans for the new police station, things like that. There's a video posted and some cartoon you can look at, and that's about it. There's got to be more information out there. So,
Right.
I'm not implying it's just the planning board. It's system wide within this town is that they have not posted plans as they should. They haven't posted information as it should be.
And Matt, I know you're aware, as I am, as a professional in this field, visiting other towns' websites to get information. There's some towns that are in cities that are worse than we are. Other towns just have it all organized and in order, and it's so easy to find stuff.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for your point. Bill, do you have any comments about the clerk and anything that you'd like me to bring up regarding the clerk position tomorrow?
Not really. No, I don't.
Okay.
I know she doesn't have the, what did she say? She didn't have the technology and stuff?
Yes,
And that's happened before, correct?
it has.
Yeah, but I think we need to address it. It's an issue, and it's something that has to be taken care of. Because
Thank you. You know, as a board, I'd like to approach it tomorrow to inquire what other boards are doing in their clerks. I think the correct way is to first discuss Paul Revis's position and then see where that goes. And then the next topic will be regarding our clerk and moving forward, the responsibilities and how that would be part of the planning board's responsibilities.
right, you know what I'd like to do. I do a lot of stuff in Burlington. I'm real tight with the town up there, and I'd like to go to their board and talk to them a little bit. Maybe I can find out some stuff what they're doing, how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
To get
Okay.
an idea. That could work out, or they're probably telling me, they might tell me, go blow your nose. I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
Well, they have
seem
a very
pretty
significant
good.
staff.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Paul, was that?
They have a significant staff in Burlington. They have like a whole floor of people.
Yep.
Right.
I've been to the building department. They're a very difficult building department for approvals. In a good way. They they're not nasty. They're by the book, and they have so much development along 128, and then schools and everything else going on. So they have a very large department.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nice people, a lot of knowledgeable people in that. I was talking to one of them before, so I'm going to see what I can find out from the way they're doing it.
Okay.
I would
How it
start
works
with
out. I think they'll be, upfront.
Okay.
I'll try. I don't know if they'll, want to tell me or what, but as a fellow board member on a planning board, they might want to talk to me. So,
Okay.
okay.
While we're on the topic of, and I started with the open office laws meeting. So there's something that came up today. I just want to make sure we're clear. The open meeting law deliberation and electronic communication. A member of a public body may email another public body members. This is where it gets a little confusing on matters within jurisdiction of a public body, so long as the email does not reach a quorum of the public body. So right now, if Matt had an email to send, or Paul, if you had an email, or Bill, you could send it to two of us, me, Matt, or Bill. You couldn't send it to all three of us. So I just want to make sure that's clear as well. So be careful about violating these laws, but it is fine to send it to two members right now because that is not a quorum. I looked up to see if the quorum changes because the amount of sitting members, and I couldn't find anything saying that it goes by the full 5 members versus the 4 members that current members that we have. Any comments on that?
No.
Okay. Just be sure where we're in this video electronic world now. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Open to any other discussions from the town planner? Not anticipated?
I have nothing to add, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Paul. From the planning board members?
No.
No.
Well, thank you. Before we do adjourn, Joanne, you've been here, you've been listening. You haven't been scared away yet. But you got to see a different part of the meeting tonight. You got to see how the A&R, if you haven't before, you got to see how those plans work. Do you have any comments or questions?
Well, there are whole books and statutes and everything to read about that.
I sent her the links for them. You're muted, Joanne.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a little history on some of those, the A&R plans that I didn't really know about. So the first one in particular, I was kind of, I didn't exactly get what the main point of that discussion was, but.
Right, on Preston Street?
Yeah, and in Blue Jay, I think it was.
So Preston Street, if you drive up Preston, before the condominium complex, there's a little stream. I think it's actually a river. I think it's the Mill River. But before that, you'll see a red house before it turns down Blue Jay, which is a subdivision cul-de-sac. That red house sits, and then towards the stream, there's a garage that sits on that lot. They want to take that and subdivide that lot that's on Preston into 2 lots.
Okay.
And our guess is that they're going to sell that off and build it. I'm sorry, Paul?
It's zone general residence. So you can build duplexes in a general residence zone. And each lot has to have 8,000 square feet of lot area and 80 feet of frontage. So
And we know this from the zoning subdivision, I'm sorry, the subdivision bylaws.
So if the lot has the required
Zoning bylaws.
lot area and frontage, it gets an approval, gets endorsement by the planning board, and the planning board does not have an approval required, is the way the nomenclature's, the legal term of art is put into the statute under section 81P, the state law.
Mhm.
So you have to read the state law and work backwards from that. And then after you understand that, understand the zoning, understand 81P and the state law, then you go to the case law to figure out if it does indeed have frontage on a accessible way that's passable. And there's a whole lot of cases about that. And that's what it's in the red book. It's called the A&R handbook.
Yeah.
And that's just the beginning of the case law about A&R plans.
Right. I started
A&R
reading.
plans have been discussed for years by different planning groups and different people trying to revise the state statutes to eliminate this process of doing an A&R plan because it's essentially written to encourage strip development. It happens a lot along rural roads. So if there's a highway that's 2-lane road and there's a big pasture land, all of that can be divided up into lots all along that road. And then you end up with a whole series of curb cuts for driveways. So you've defeated the efficiency of this nice road that was built because the A&R plan process allows the subdivision of these lots. Whereas it would be better if there was one curb cut somewhere and the whole land was developed as a unit separated from the highway. So there's been several attempts to repeal the A&R statute, but it's failed repeatedly. The statute was, I think, initially adopted in 1954 and stayed on the books ever since.
And that's just a brief, I remember Paul telling me that a bunch of years ago. And I'm like, I know I already read this and my brain hurts and I need to read it again. And once being on the board and going through maybe 4 or 5 of the A&Rs and endorsing them or not endorsing them or having different, it's a learning process. And I know for us, if there's nothing, as Paul mentioned, if they have that in general residence, if they have the 80 feet of frontage and the required 8,000 square feet, they don't need any zoning Board of Appeals approval. Not that we have our hands tied, but we don't have an option. We endorse it. And I think you heard a few times tonight, the 21 days. If we don't endorse in 21 days, it automatically becomes approved. It does go through some courts. Paul, you can correct me because we haven't been through this that I know of.
Well, it's not automatically approved. There's case law that says the plan is not accepted. We can adopt a rule, which we've adopted, that the plan is not accepted and clocked in until it is presented at a planning board meeting. This is on our rules and regulations. Presented at a planning board meeting. We have essentially the application, which is the bottom of it is a receipt where the planning board members sign that. That restates the 21-day rule. When we receive the plan, we sign that receipt. The planning board members sign the receipt. The next day, the attorney or whoever's representing the A&R can take that and get a date stamped at the town clerk's office. And that's when the 21 days starts. And then after 21 days, if the plan has not been endorsed and the planning board has not written a detailed letter to the applicant explaining why it's not going to be endorsed, the applicant then can have that receipt turned around at the town clerk's office and ask for the town clerk to allow the plan to be certified by the town clerk. That the 21 days lapsed and since it was received and there was no action by the planning board. all of this is in the state statute, so you have to, read another set of books to get to that. And I may not have stated every part of that rule correctly. You have to get every single sentence and every single paragraph and follow it.
Paul, I'm amazed at how much you do know about this. I know you've lived it for a long time, but it's still, every time I look through it again, I find something new. So it's good to hear it again. Now, Joanne, my point was that you had a chance to, I'm glad you had to see this, but you have a chance to hear from Paul or Matt or Bill if you do have any questions. I know I really enjoyed our discussion. This would just give you another chance to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, I have been learning a lot just by attending the meetings. It's all been pretty clear, and you have plenty of opportunity to ask questions during the meetings. So yeah, I enjoyed the conversation I had with you too, and it did provide a lot of insight in terms of what the board does, as well as the documents. I haven't read all of them yet that you sent me, but I did start reading some of them.
Understood. It takes a while to absorb them. I think for me anyway, I did have to read a few times, and I still reference, I keep as much as I can in front of me. And before meetings, and I did mention to Joanne when we spoke, there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of reviewing of plans, but it doesn't mean you can't reach out to another member on the board if you're not sure, if you have questions. Or I reach out to Paul and Matt a lot because I don't understand what something might mean. And I want to make sure at least I have a good idea of what this little mark on the drawing means.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
it's very interesting looking at all the plans and trying to interpret them from the surveys and all that, but you do have to ask questions. I can see that. And the A&R document you sent me with all those case studies, wow, there were a lot of examples there. A lot. But
And Attorney McGrail and Attorney McCarthy know every one of them.
really? Oh, wow.
And so does
Well,
Matt.
they have reference to them in the past, yes. I'm sorry, Paul.
And so does Matt.
I do my best to know where people try to sneak things in, so, because I attempt to do that occasionally too in my own job, so.
True. And not that there's sides, but Matt's on our side. And when Matt speaks, and sometimes this is a very frustrating position because of the rest of how everything operates, I'm trying to be very cordial about it. We are lucky to have in place our town engineer. He has brought up, and I've learned so much in the last year and a half on the different projects that have come up with his explaining, his understanding. I've been in his office twice now to learn more, and it's great to have someone who can really explain things, maybe sometimes too much. And I might be doing that right now, but explaining things to a point where you definitely understand why curb cuts and accessibility is so important on these sidewalks and that they have to happen. And he's very adamant about them happening. And I immediately liked him because of those conversations. So I just wanted to add that one part, that it is a team. We have to rely on the town engineer, the town council, town planner. So these positions are so important for us.
Yeah, I can see that. All that background information that you can gather is helpful. Those A&R, the case studies in the A&R document, it looked like some of those were from other towns as well, weren't they? All over the state?
Most of them are.
Yeah.
Most of them are all over the state. And there were some really important ones in there that actually triggered how the A&R, as Paul was mentioning, it has to, if it's different rules, if they're rules, they have to be on a major road or a public access road. That becomes one of the first things that delineates whether it's an A&R or it's not.
Right. Okay.
Yep. And all those changed because they got in front of planning boards and the attorneys proposed it, the planning board, and they discussed back and forth, and depending on if it had to go to a court of law, but that's how those regulations changed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my brain is definitely done today. And I know we actually kept the meeting to about 2 hours, which I'm learning with all the video and interface of how to work this. And Matt, Bill, Paul, Joanne, if you have any comments of how this meeting feedback, how it could be better, I'm always open to suggestions.
We'll be doing something quite different at the next meeting when we look at Lovis Avenue. That's going to be a subdivision, and that's in the subdivision rules and regulations book that controls that. And they're creating 3 new lots and a roadway on essentially virgin land. And they're also going to the Conservation Commission because some of the land is wetlands. So Joanne, that's going to be a much more complicated discussion. A lot of engineering feedback from the different engineers.
Yep. Between the town engineer and the engineers from the client side. Sometimes there's landscape architects involved. But what it comes down to, and please help me out, board, if you have any comments on it, we really care about the abutters. We don't want this development to cause an existing resident all the wash and all the drainage goes into their yard. We're really concerned about that. Or if trees are cut down that change the whole environment because these 4 or 5 beautiful trees that are cut down, now the interaction of the other trees and what changes in the woodlands causes more drainage issues. So it's a concern.
Yeah. You don't usually want to build on wetlands, do you? You have to avoid that, I thought.
You're not allowed to build on wetlands. They have to be noted as wetlands on the plan, and that's not always the case.
So there is a Conservation Commission meeting Thursday night that you can zoom in on. And that's another experience of seeing how that board works.
Oh, yeah. Are they the ones that check and make sure that the wetlands, there's adequate room and all that they're not going to build on the wetlands? Is that what they do or what?
Yes, that's exactly what they do.
Okay.
It's protected land.
Yeah.
So it's a protected environment.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Yeah, that seemed like kind of an issue on the North Ave situation too.
I'm sure we'll be hearing from the Conservation Commission, and as you can see, the plan that I shared tonight, that was from from Paul, that came from a review, it looked like, from the Conservation Commission.
That was actually the plan that the attorney submitted with the rezoning request. I thought it was too complicated to deal with as far as understanding where the site was and what was actually being proposed and how it fit into the context. So that's why I created my own illustrations and put them in your packet.
Right. I'm going to miss that, Paul.
Yeah.
I don't want to get sentimental about it, but it's amazing what you do for our board. So,
well, I won't get sentimental.
oh, you're going to miss Matt and Bill and me. Come on. You're going to miss this. We're your friends.
Yeah, the only ones left. Yes. It's been good working with you. We've only got a couple more meetings. So
I know. I've been thinking about that a lot.
How town meeting is going to function with this virus and how we are going to have a Zoom meeting with hundreds of people.
Right.
Wow.
Well, we'll have to see. It's a learning experience for all of us. And I know we're going to make mistakes, and hopefully people learn from them and don't get too jaded by them.
Well, I've made quite a few over the years that people indulge me and let me graciously correct myself the next time or how to do it better. I appreciate that.
Of course. Point taken. Well, I'll be open to a joint adjournment if anybody has a motion to make.
Yeah, I'm actually going on over 5.5 hours of Zoom meetings today, and I think I've had enough. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it and third it and fourth it.
All right, I got a gavel. Thank you all.
Good night.
Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Joanne.
Good night.
You're welcome. Good night.
Good night.